All right, so let's please start with the first proposition speaker. Oh, by the way, sorry, uh, Jessica, we decided to go with the children motion.
Sure, no worries.
Okay, perfect. All right, let's have the first proposition speaker give their speech.
All right, I'm gonna start in 3, 2, 1. So, Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen, perhaps you've heard of the saying, "It takes a village to raise a child." Now, to us, the proposition, this is more than just a phrase, it's a way of life. Many of my friends were raised by single mothers, and they would not be the people that they are today if it wasn't for the village that invested in them. Extended family, neighbors, teachers, and their mothers, co-workers, they all contributed to their upbringing in significant ways. They encouraged them, and other times they disciplined them without a second thought because they wanted to make sure that they grew up with the skills to become productive members of the community. Our villages are disappearing today. The pressures and pace of modern life has made parents and children themselves stressed and miserable. And with the rise of dual earning families, mothers and especially fathers are struggling with work-life issues, forcing many of them to lean in or opt out, unfortunately. But is it truly modern life that's at fault, or is it our expectation that two people can parent and do it alone and do it well? Is the nuclear family all that it is cracked up to be? This is what we would like to address and find out in this debate. Now, we, the proposition, prefer a world where children are raised communally instead of in traditional family units. And before going on further with my speech, I'm going to briefly define this motion. So we prefer a world where children are raised communally, as in by an entire community or a big group of people, and not just a mother and father. And these include family, friends, extended relatives, the elders of the community, teachers, etc., instead of in traditional family units, meaning the nuclear family, the conventional mother-father system, where only the mother and father are the heaviest influences on how their children are raised. Now, despite the belief that monogamous male-female bonding is how mothers and children were supported and thrived, the anthropologist Sarah Blaffer believes it was actually female cooperative breeding, or allo-parenting, we also believe this, between quotes, which is sharing and caring derived from the pooled energy of a network of grandparents, aunts, uncles, siblings, distantly related kin, and other non-kin that shaped our evolution. Now, in our model of the world, multiple adults are viewed as equal parental units, and children are collectively raised and nurtured by them, with financial and other types of support being provided by either the state or by the community as a whole. So it's not just mom and dad, the community as a whole contributes time and resources and energy. Before proceeding with my argument, I'm going to briefly outline our team's case split. So I, the first speaker, will be presenting a fiscal argument for the most part that looks at how collective financial and resource support can be better and more effective than just two parents financially and resource-wise supporting their children. Our second speaker, Rita, will be rebutting opposition team's arguments and explaining how children are likely to be more autonomous and open-minded when raised communally, and also how parents will be less distressed as they are gaining serious support from those around them. Our third speaker, Selma, will be rebutting and summarizing our case, and Rita will be giving the reply speech. And without further ado, I will get into my argument. So as mentioned earlier, to us, in an optimal communal parenting system, finances and resources will be provided by the state or by the community as a whole. So many people are materialistically contributing to meet a child's necessities. This would place so much less strain on mom and dad, because think about how a child is more likely to have their financial and other needs met if income and resources are coming in from several people, not just two people, mom and dad. They're coming in from many different people. The children are less likely to live in borderline poverty or be neglected. Think about how if mom and dad are struggling to make ends meet, they're trying to pay the bills. In the end, them and their child may not be able to live comfortably enough, and their child's potential may not be nurtured, and opportunities may be missed because of this. In 2019, the annual income of families in the United States was nothing more than $49,000. And although this may seem like a lot of money to some people, it's pretty low, very low actually, when you subtract taxes, the mortgage, the electricity and light bills, how inflation plays a role, etc. You're left with this very small amount of money and resources that are allocated to the child individually. And another thing that's important to mention is that incidence of maltreatment or specifically child neglect will drastically be reduced in the community for the same reasons that I mentioned above. In the US, almost 4 million children were found to be victims of neglect. And why does this happen? Because mom and dad, by themselves are unable to meet the needs of their child enough. But in the community, say there could be some kind of collective trust fund in which to contribute money. And anyone who is part of the child rearing community can contribute to this fund. Now, opposition may say, well, actually, this may lead to even more financial instability because members of the community are not guaranteed to contribute to this fund. And so the child may end up not having the resources that they need. And to this, we say, when all these adults actively take part in raising a child, they will see themselves as parental figures. They will feel a sense of attachment, a sense of responsibility for this child's well-being. So, if they know they can contribute to improving the life of this child that they have helped raise, I'm almost 100% positive that they will. And remember, since the entire community is contributing financially, every single individual in that community is not expected to, deposit an exorbitant amount of money into the fund because it builds up. $100 from the old lady across the street who's like a grandma to you, $200 from your adopted neighbor, $50 from the pastor of the local church. So, it builds up. And at the end of the day, it's going to be better for the child. It's going to provide them more stability. And so before concluding, why is this argument important? Well, because whether we like it or not, no, thank you. Because whether we like it or not, money is the anthem of success. It plays a huge role in how we live our lives, and the quality of our living does depend on it. We have to finance almost or pretty much everything. So to obtain, all the resources. And if obtaining that financing and those resources is better under a communal parenting system, then so be it. That's perhaps what we should adopt for our future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that speech. The speech time was 6 minutes and 49 seconds. Let's have the first speaker of the opposition side.
Can everyone see and hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so my speech will start on the first word. Now, firstly, before I proceed with my own speech, I'd like to focus a short amount of time on a few things that have been said by the first proposition speaker, mainly about the financial aspect of this debate. Now, number one, we believe that there is nothing forbidding people to contribute in the raising of children in our side of the house, whether it is financially or moral contribution. We do believe that, yes, financial resources are a problem, yet there is nothing exclusive about what the first proposition speaker has said. The problems that may occur in our side of the house will also occur in their side of the house, and we will go back to that in the coming speeches. Now onto my speech. We believe that the children are the building blocks of modern society. They are the leaders of the future, and for every society to live across time, it must provide its children with the best care possible to ensure they are ready to face the challenges of life. As such, allow us to first and foremost define what is meant by traditional family units and communal raising. And on this, we very much disagree with the proposition's definitions. I will not say that they were inaccurate definitions because we are free to choose our own definitions, but I will say that they were mostly unrealistic because taking into consideration the stakes of this motion. Now, traditional family units refer to families where the parenting figures have a legal or genetic relation to the children. These children could have been adopted, having been given birth to by one of the parenting figures, having a legal family relationship, such as a guardian, or simply having a genetic relationship, such as grandmother, grandfather, uncle, or aunt. A communal way of raising several children consists of the raising of a child by parenting figure with no genetic or legal relation to the children. This type of parenting is often found in orphanages and cults. Now, regarding the major stakeholders of this debate, we believe they are the children. They are, after all, the ones who will have to be raised one way or another. Furthermore, as children have a clear impact on society, we do believe that society is also an important stakeholder. Now that the stakeholders have been identified, definitions introduced, and main actors portrayed, allow me to put into light the main and highest priority argument. A communal way of raising a child will not provide children with the necessary tools and skills to integrate into society. Now, why is that? A child is one of the most sensitive living organisms on earth. He requires certain factors that he can only attain in a traditional family unit. Number one, a great amount of attention and care. Now, before elaborating any further on that specific point, we do concede that there are occasions in which children are deprived of the necessary care and attention necessary in traditional family units. And we also do concede that there are occasions in which they receive that care and attention when raised communally. Yet, failure to attain that care and attention do not occur on our side of the house on the same scale as it occurs on the preposition side of the house, just like obtaining and attaining the care and attention do not occur in the preposition side of the house as it occurs in our side of the house. Now, a child needs tremendous care and attention. One second. Yet the very way communal raising is structured does not allow for that care to occur. Communal raising, according to the definition introduced, often consists of a group of people taking care of a bigger group of children, with the group of carers having no legal or genetic relationship with the children. Often, these carers have no motive to take care of these children other than to acquire remuneration. Once their shift is done, they completely forget about the children until it is time for their shift once again. As such, it is very difficult for an emotional liaison to develop between the child and the carer. As a consequence, no matter how true the care is, the child is deprived of the emotional attention he requires. This is often only a problem with communal ways of raising children. In a traditional family unit, the parenting figures are not paid to take care of children. They often do so out of love for the child. They are not paid for that. They have no shift. They are there for their children, not out of the desire for remuneration, but out of love. As such, it allows for the development of an emotional liaison between the parenting figure and the child, which is something that the child is in critical need of and something that is clearly absent, or in some cases, very rare in the preposition side of this debate. Any POIs?
POI.
Go ahead.
I feel like you're assuming that for us, a communal parenting system discludes and eliminates the parents completely. We're not saying that. The parents will still have a role, but they're also going to be supported by people in their community, teachers, elders, pastors, whatever. And you seem to think otherwise. So
I did not think otherwise. I have based my arguments based on the definition, which may I remind you, I disagreed with your definition of this case. If you have paid attention to the definition, you would have known that we did not mean that. Furthermore, I do not assume that the parents will be left out, except that in the way we define this motion, the way communal raising have no place for parenting. Now that the first factor is clear, allow me to proceed with the second most important factor a child needs, and that is someone with his best interests at heart. What one cannot succeed or integrate into society if not pushed and motivated. A child needs guidance and support throughout his teenage years and his childhood for him to develop into a well-nourished adult. Now, allow us to explain why it is very difficult, if not impossible, for him to receive that support on the preposition side of the house compared to our side of the house. Now, as I outlined in the previous argument, in the previous stake, on the preposition side of the house, the people responsible for taking care of these children are often motivated by remuneration, since the communal way of raising children often occurs in orphanages and such places. When one is motivated by remuneration, it is very difficult for him to develop a certain liaison with that children. And I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's very difficult compared when, for example, let's say your mom or dad raising you. Again, I have conceded there are cases in which the mom or dad do not have the best interest of the children at heart, yet they are very rare and do not occur on the same scale as they occur in the prepositions side of this debate. Now, why do we say that? Because we do believe that when you are motivated by remuneration, it is very difficult for you to develop a certain interest in that child's success. Not impossible, but very difficult. And we do believe that one of the most important things a child needs in modern society is for someone to care about him, to motivate him, to push him. And that is something that can only be attained under a traditional family unit. Why is that? Because again, there is nothing that motivates them other than that child's success and welfare. They do not care about the money. They have no profit in that. They sacrifice everything for that child. And as a result, they truly care about that child. Often in a communal way of raising a child, there is now a deep and sensitive relationship between the carer and the child. As such, it doesn't allow for that person to necessarily care about the welfare of that child, which is something that the child really needs. It is very important. And without it, it will be very difficult for that child to integrate society in the future. Now, again, here, allow me to outline why that is important in the future and why that impacts society. Because when you do not receive that care, it is very difficult for you as a child to develop the necessary skills and tools to integrate society. As such, you will maybe can be considered a not so good society members, which is something very important in the long term. Now, allow me to summarize very briefly what I have spoken about so far. Number one, the inability of a communal way of raising to offer child with the attention and care it needs and deserves. And number two, the inability of communal ways of raising a child to offer necessary guidance and support to that very child. As such, we also discussed the impact this will have on the society as a secondary stakeholder. Now that the impact is clear, we will elaborate on certain points even further in the next speeches, and as such, I stand proud to propose.
Okay, thank you very much. The speech was 8 minutes and 26 seconds. Let's please have the second speaker from side proposition.
Okay, give me 1 minute to set up. I will be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. In order to win this debate, we have to do one thing in general: to prove to you why children being raised communally offers way more advantages and is better than being raised in traditional family units. And this is exactly what we'll be doing today and what we have already started by doing. And in order for proposition to win, they have to do the opposite and convince us otherwise. As team proposition, this house stands for and prefers a world where children are raised communally instead of in traditional family units. Panel, today I'm going to be doing 4 things in general. Firstly, I'll learn about the opposition case. Secondly, I'll present my first argument about how in our world, children are going to grow up with an open mind and more autonomy, where several children are simply deprived of in a traditional family unit. Then I'll present my second argument about how the parents are going to be less distressed. And this is important because it talks about how the parents are positively affected in their environment as well as children. And throughout my speech, I'll be doing some very necessary weighing. So quickly, I'll about just a couple of things Team Op has said. So Team Op have said that in their world, nobody is saying that other people can't contribute. However, in their world, they don't have a support of a group of people at their sides. That is wrong. Sure, they can have some people coming at times and helping, but that is not what we are striving for in our world. In our world, the children grow up with a community. The children are exposed to an entourage that is way different from what Team Op is trying to say. People who grew up together, who are interacting with each other daily, who are exposed to different parenting techniques is not what is happening in their world. Children in our world can have a group of people to rely on at all times. They also said that the child is the most sensitive, and we agree with that. And they proceeded to say that they need the most care and attention. However, that is exactly what we are striving for in our world and what I will explain in my speech. The first speaker said that in their world, the child is deprived of the attention that they are required, but failed to convince us why. However, we simply do not understand how in a community, they are unable to give them care. It doesn't make sense to us how a group of people that grow up next to each other and interact with each other daily cannot do so. And we will explain why more in depth in our speech.
POI.
We as humans believe that this small, isolated structure of the traditional family unit would allow us to create the lives we really wanted because parents are encumbered by the demands of extended families and social pressures to conform. However, this is exactly why there should be a reform and communal parenting should be presented. In this model, children are able to live as a community, never feeling alone, always having someone to turn around to, never feeling neglected. In fact, at least 1 in 7 children have experienced neglect in the past year in the United States. This is just to explain how many children in the world are neglected. The isolated structure of a traditional family is abolished, and with that, you get more benefits, such as growing up with more autonomy and an open mind. And that being said, I'm going to move to my first argument. Children are going to grow up with a group of people by their side that are going to care for them and treat them as one of their own. Children are going to receive an unconditional amount of love and support, not only love from mom and dad, but a whole group of people that are able to care, listen, and support them financially, as the first speaker explained. In the open-minded aspect of things, with time, they are not only going to expose to one point of view of the world, but several points of view. And this is amazing because they are going to be able to blossom into kids who are more mature than most and that can build their own personalities based on different points of views of the world. So let's put it into perspective. Several times we see children that are exposed to parents that don't involve and don't interact with other people. Parents simply neglect their own children because they are busy and sometimes because they don't care. And children feel that at a young age, and this plays a huge factor in how they grow up. Less time spent with them translate into less knowledge being acquired to them and less love. They grew up to be more ignorant and less knowledgeable about what's going on around them. I'll take that in a minute. And this causes them to be closed-minded and less spirited, especially when they are exposed to parents that don't speak to them and don't give them the necessary time. However, in a communal parenting environment, children grow up in the support of a whole community, people that care for them and give them the necessary amounts of time. They get to hear different point of views and not only one set of minds. And that allows them to grow up with the autonomy of being the people that they want to be, and especially an open-minded human that accepts everyone and is willing to accept new ideas. A couple sets of parents is always better than just one. The more, the merrier. The child feels more safe and more loved and more heard, obviously. The child doesn't get exposed to only one version of the story or one view, but several different ones, and understands that for certain topics, they don't only have one solution to it or one view of seeing it. I'll not be taking that POI.
You have just spoke about how we limited ourselves to not explaining how if these parents are absent, etc. Yet, if you had listened to our definitions, we clearly stated that a traditional family unit does not necessarily is composed of only parents, but also of anyone with a legal or genetic relationship with that type. For example, grandparents, a grandmother, uncle, aunts, etc. So here we provided different views, different experiences, and different cares all at the same time.
Yes, we heard that. However, in our world, that is not, we have a system of support. We have people that are always there trying to help. If the children do not feel heard by one of their parents, they can go to different people and hear different point of views. However, in your world, only some people come from time to time and get to speak with the children. However, they don't have that determining factor that we have. They don't have that support that is always there for them. Now I'll be continuing. With being open-minded, children grow up less ignorant and less likely to stigmatize certain groups of people. And this is very important. Since they are exposed to different groups of people, different races, cultures, ethnicities, they do not build prejudice against people. They are literally exposed to a more open and different groups of people and understand that everyone is different but equal. They grow up to be the kind of people we strive for and we want in our community. We don't see this at times in traditional family units. Children who are exposed to only people like them. Obviously, they don't understand why people are different since they don't get to see them and grow up with them. They grow up to feel superior and not understand why those people are different than them. All in all, children grow up in an environment that is accepting, that is different, and that allows the child to find himself. An open-minded child is created in a communal environment. Feeling alone, never feeling alone in their thoughts, always being open to new experiences, running around to different places where they acquire new wisdom and understanding daily. Moving on to my second argument, the parents themselves feel less distressed. Parents feel as if they are not alone. They have a group of people that are always there to help them and help their child grow into the incredible person they want them to be. In a family unit, several times, parents feel stuck as if they are not doing a good enough job as raising a kid, which is normal. They feel frustrated at times when the children become stuck in a place where the parents' needs are ignored, while the children loudly insist that their needs are met. The parents feel lost and helpless. But the parents ignore the fact that they are trying to solve the problem in the wrong context. They simply cannot solve this within the family traditional unit. They can, however, solve it in the context of the family. It's not reasonable to ask young children to be able at all times to engage in problem-solving methods that the parents want to meet everyone's need. It's hard enough for them to understand and express their own needs, and at times they're simply too overwhelmed to listen to the parents' need. And in those moments, the greatest tool is the support of others, because with the support of others, they are able to feel heard, and themselves can translate that. And if the child is not responding to their parents' techniques, they might respond to another, which is why the community is the perfect way. The child feels heard, the parents feel better because they have people for them that are there for them and their child. And for all these reasons, we are so proud to propose.
Okay, thank you very much. The speech was 8 minutes and 14 seconds. Let's please welcome the second speaker from side up.
Okay, so give me 2 minutes. Okay, so I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Hello, ladies, hello, gentlemen. I'm honored today to be the second speaker of the opposition team. So today I will be doing 3 things. First of all, I will do some rebuttals, then I will present you my arguments, and lastly, I will do some weighting and how we have ultimately won this debate. So, panel, let me start with doing some rebuttals. So the first really talked about how they're going to have most likely a more, how they're going to have different parenting techniques. Well, first of all, I think a really important point that I feel like we should really clarify is that having different parenting techniques is not good. We need to have one parenting technique, because when you have so many different parenting techniques, it's going to be, you as a child would not know what is the best, because you're a child and you need most likely 1 or 2 way of parenting techniques for you and for you to be the best version of yourself. And their point is that how they talk about within their arguments, how they're going to be less neglected on their side of the house. So, and as they give the example, 1 out of 7 children in the United States. Well, panel, I am asking a question, even from the proposition team, when they said that even when we have these family units, when they have 2, 3, 4 kids, when parents choose to take care of these children and still they are neglected, and how on their side of the house they're going to have less neglected children. Panel, this is what they have failed to prove to us. Panel, they have failed to give us a model. Within the first and the second speech, they did not prove to us how having those community way of raising children is going to be benefit for the children, not financially, not for the parents, but for the children, because this is what it is about. This is how the children are going to most likely benefit from it. So going back is another point is when they talked about parents are neglected, busy, and they don't care. So parents that have chose to give life, parents if they're genetically with them, or if they decided to adopt them, they are going to have busy and they do not care. And so on the other side, where it's their job, when you have community people working for them, they're going to care and they're not going to be busy. This does not make sense, panel, because for those reasons. Another point is that how they're most likely to be more open-minded. Well, first of all, I feel like they have failed to prove to us how they're to be more open-minded, because first of all, when you have enough education, so if you just do some research, if you just talk to the people around you. Another point is really important to clarify is that we're not going to stop and lock those child in a case. No, this is absolutely not the case. We prefer an outside the house way of raising children with family units, and not raising them in a box. And this is what something I feel like they have failed to us. When they talk about more safe and more love on the community, well, panel, I am sure that is false, and I'll rather prove to you that later on my arguments. So lastly, how also a really important point, and I will point it out later within my speech, as the other team said, I quote, everyone is different and on the same time equal. Well, panel, as everyone is different, so everyone has different needs, right? And if they have different needs, so one will be more needy than the other, and one we need to give them more time, and how they're going to achieve the equality that they are saying. Lastly, within those 20 seconds, I really should think when they talked about never feeling alone, and this is the problem of the other side of the communal way of the communal way. Because if you want to be alone, if you need privacy, how are you going to achieve that privacy within a communal service? So, panel, with all the point I have given you, not taken. Panel, with all the point that I have given you, I am proud to oppose. So now, let me now give you my own insight on the discussed matter. What is this motion really about? What is this motion really about? Because I feel like the other side of the house has totally failed panel to prove to you this. In our side of the house, what we want, and this is what this motion is about, is how it's going to be benefiting for the children. The children are the base of the society, of our society, and they are our future. And they have failed to prove to us how it is going to be benefiting for the children, non-financially and not for the parents. So now let me give to you my arguments. So firstly, parents are dedicated to their children because parents are most likely to be dedicated to their children rather than the other side of the house. Because I'm going to prove to you how having those family units is better for the child. We can take really simple examples for laws for families. Those family laws have been more than 2,000 years to build them, right? And to build those, it took so much time. And now you want to try? So this is not an easy case. We're not talking about random objects. We're not talking about robots. We're talking about children, about their lives, about their children, about their future, about our future, the future of a society. And they have totally failed to prove to us how, because they did not give us a model. And this is the issue of the Argentine case. Because how is having those communal service is going to help them? So now going forward, the parents are most likely to be more dedicated because they choose to have these children, even if it's adopted or not, and they have genetically a way of doing so. So how are we going to protect those child? Also really important point to talk about, because when you're going to have those communal service, you're most likely to feel less safe and to be having more actually a trauma, because they are most likely to give more attention to one or another, etc. Well, going back, and also really important that we want to say, they are bad. We are not saying that they're not bad parents. No, panel. What we are saying in our side of the house, that even if they have bad parents, and even in those worst case scenario, it's better to have a family unit. Because if they have bad parents, we're also going to have bad community service. So going back, why are they dedicated? They're dedicated by blood and choice. They care. They're most likely to care for those abnormally reasons, because when you are a parent and when you see your child going through something, you're most likely to feel them and to feel the need that they have. But on the other side of the house, when you're going to have someone work from them, they are someone that you give money to. When you're going to see a child, it's most likely to be really hard for you to care. And they have proved to us, and they also proved us within their case. So there's more care and love, and they're most likely to have less trauma than on the other hand and on the other side of the house. So another point, what we want at the end of the day, what do we prove and what do we want at the end of the day is a child to be happy. We can all agree that each child is going to have its needs. It differs from one another. And I will say again, I quote, everyone is different and equal. So panel, how in a community which needs, as I said, equal care for everyone, someone is going to be more needy than the other? Right. So panel, with all the points I have given you, I'm really proud to propose. But now within those last 45 seconds, I will prove to you how we have ultimately won this debate. So in one side of the house, the proposition side of the house, they are claiming that we need to care about financial rather than the happiness of the children, how we need to care about the parents rather than the happiness of the children, and how in this community service they're actually going to destroy and have so much more trauma, protected time, and how they're going to have so much more trauma is better for the child, because they will not have enough attention, they do not have the physical dedicated way, etc. But here on the other side of the house, this side of the house, we are promoting, what we are saying is that first of all, it's going to be how actually is going to help the children. They're going to be more dedicated, they're going to be more happy, and at the end of the day, we're going to have a better future and how they're going to be more happy, and how actually on the other side of the house, they have totally failed to prove to us how having those community service is better. So panel, with all the point I have given you, I'm really proud to oppose. And thank you for listening to my speech.
Thank you very much. Speech time was 8 minutes and 13 seconds. Let's have the third proposition speaker.
Okay. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, so I'll start in 3, 2, 1. As the saying goes, it takes a village. For hundreds of thousands of years, children were raised within multi-generational family structures. The grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, neighbors, and other members of the tribal community watch over the children and interact with them. And today, we're witnessing future generations being more and more scared of the outside world, scared of associating with the same human race. Why? Because of traditional family units type of upbringing. In this speech, I'll be refuting the opposite team's arguments, summarizing and reinforcing those of my team. The opposite team have been saying and repeating that kids and other members of the community are not genetically related, and they have been using it as an argument, but I do not see why it matters, or why would only people with whom we are related genetically would care for us. This argument is unbiased because how do you describe long friendships, marriages which last for decades, and I hope you're not talking about incestuous marriage. This problem of genetics is only a problem of the opposite team individually, just like much of the tension and strain of parents individually raising their kids is self-inflicted. The dream of individualized lives, of the one nuclear family as the basis of modern existence, is not conducive to joyful parenting. Nor everything depends on the parents. Both parents and children pay the price for modern isolation. Much of the stress, depression, and existential anxieties increasingly diagnosed in both adults and children might be related to this isolation. And when I say that since always we have been living and surviving thanks to communities, it is not to die back to the clock and try to rebuild past forms of community. Who would want to live under constant judgment from extended family, neighbors, etc.? We're saying that we will live in communities, eco-villages or co-housing, and they will much better suit our need for privacy and community. Because when we say children should be raised communally, we mean by that adults agree to create these communities for a better and healthier life and environment for their kids. It is safe and not dangerous, because when we talk about communal parenting, we don't mean by that anybody and any kid can go and talk to anybody. We mean that a bunch of people agree to live in a community and raise their kids the same way. And there are many examples like in Ithaca in the state of New York. We're not saying that kids should go and talk to random people in the street. The opposite team also said that they need a lot of attention and care. That's why traditional parenting is better. This only reinforces our case, as kids will have both parents and other members of the community to care for them. It is less stressing for parents, as they will stop having to solely come up with plans for their children to enjoy their holidays or weekends. They will have less responsibility, as the kids will be every member of the community's responsibility. They could have more time for themselves, which will reflect positively on them and their mental health, and therefore naturally on the children's mental state. You know what they always say: we cannot choose our parents. And it is simply and sadly true that parents can be bad and unpleasant. Biological parents are not always the ideal role models like the traditional family units culture tries to make us believe. And it is so wrong. As I could say, it was empirically proved that parents can simply have negative impact on what represents the future generation leaders. But in a world where communal parenting is the norm, parents will no longer be the only role model and inspirations, which brings a subtle sense of relief. Kids will have a variety of options to consider their role models. And we all know that children tend to become what their parents are. But what if the biological parents are not what their kids identify with? What if their professions is not where these children are going to excel? In the community, they will have so many options, and they will justly and fairly choose who most goes with their identity from who they get inspired. Dear listener, just as my team has said, we are human. We are wired to live in communities and societies, and it has been proved in the history of evolution so many times that we cannot survive individually. Do you think that our current world really represents the real meaning of living in societies? The opposite team has been saying that they did not mean, but by their case, that they will put kids in boxes. And that's not what we said. And I do agree. And I don't mean that in traditional family upbringing, we do not interact with others or have, yes.
You spoke for like 4 minutes about the importance of interacting with people from outside your family, your parents, etc. Yet we do not see how that's exclusive to your side of the motion, because we have clearly stated that whether you are in a parent in a traditional family unit, you will still have the ability to interact with other people, to live with other people, and also learn from other people. So it's not exclusive. We also have that in our side of the motion, yet you have based your all arguments around this simple sentence.
I already answered that. I already answered that. I told you that yes, we do agree that you do not just put boxes. We do know that we do not just put kids in boxes, and we agree that people still interact with the others, because as we said, we know that they are right to live in communities, etc. But do you think that the real, like the current form of upbringing really represents the real meaning of living in societies? Yes, we know that kids still interact with the outside world, but does it really mean? But does it really represent real meaning of living in community? And I don't mean that in traditional family upbringing, we do not interact with others or have social relationships with them. I mean that we do not connect with them. We are scared of the other for the sole reason that they do not belong to our environment. That's what I mean, dear points. What is the difference between them and our family members? What makes our parents better people than strangers? Dear opponent, there is no fundamental distinction or difference between humans. We're the ones who create the illusion of difference, and we're the ones who suffer from it, and discrimination, hatred that comes with it. But if we lived and raised our children in made communities and gradually in a world which all inhabitants are considered part of the same community, this will stop. Individual traditional family units is the reason behind why new generations are more scared than even going outside, of trying new things and connecting with other people. I'm sure that there are cases where different perspectives and choices have led to tensions between some parents and communities. But this is actually positive for the upbringing, as it is a way for parents to teach their kids to navigate differences in style with grace, in grace. It will undeniably happen in real life. And when we are not trying to depict a perfect image of this type of upbringing, we are just saying that it is a way better alternative. The opposite team also said that members of the community can simply not contribute financially, like the first speaker said. And this is wrong and shows how much he misunderstood us and the definition we gave. And I will say it again. When we say communal upbringing, we mean that many consenting parents and kids agreed to live in communities. So it is not imposed on them. If they agreed, it means that they are ready to contribute financially. So I don't see how this is a standing argument. It is financially optimal for parents. And I'll give some examples. Numerous people who come to the aid of neighbors when they need something, whether it's groceries, I don't know, it happens a lot. Or parents who volunteer to prepare activities for all the kids a weekend to enjoy their times, instead of every individual couple of parents doing so. It is financially optimal for everybody. When we will start raising kids in communities, a longing will begin to develop for more meaningful relationships, for genuine community, for lives that will closer to nature, will increase tolerance, solidarity, intimacy, and decrease poverty, discrimination, isolation. That's why I'm proud to propose.
Thank you very much. The speech was 7 minutes and 50 seconds. Now let's have the third opposition speaker.
I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. The other side has come on here today chanting all the benefits of a communal child rearing, but they have noticeably failed to give us any reason as to why these benefits fundamentally cannot be found outside of communal child rearing, besides that they have very purposefully ignored our very real concerns as to the dangers that communal child rearing can bring to our principal stakeholder, these very children. Ladies and gentlemen, we on opposition think that Prop is seeing this world through rosy glasses, intentionally overlooking many aspects of communal child rearing that are less than perfect. In today's speech, I will go over the two main clashes that oppose us during the debate. First, is the financial side important and does it do any good for the children? And second, having many parental figures, is having many parental figures a good thing? First, starting with the first clash, is the financial side important and does it do any good for the children? So the other side came on here and told us that finances in the communal child rearing will be provided by the government or the community, and thus less families living in border-side poverty. First, the government doesn't give a care in the world and will not finance this way of life, as is shown by multiple models throughout the world that are fending for themselves. So this option is deleted. But more than that, poverty is a problem that is symmetrical to both worlds. Most people who adopt communal communal child rearing today are poor. Children raised in the villages of Kenya are living in borderline poverty. Communities in the villages of Morocco are living in borderline poverty. As long as you do not prove to us that poverty is not a problem in your world, this argument falls to the water. Furthermore, we'll be extra charitable and pretend like their argument is a thing. Let us remind you what our main stakeholders are: children. So parents struggling with finances doesn't play as much of a role in today's debate, as the wellness of children and finances is not the only thing that makes a child happy. No, thank you. Neither is it the most important thing. Having responsible adults as your parents is. Sending these children to your friends to raise them with the excuse that it's good for finances isn't, especially when it's extremely dangerous and harmful. When it is extremely dangerous and harmful to the children for reasons I will reiterate in today's speech. And moving on to the second clash, which is the most important one, is having several adults taking care of a children, a good thing. So what have they given us in here? They have told us that with many parental figures, children will grow up to have a more open mind and more autonomy. First mind will be disproved later on in my speech, and the second one we will show why the second one is overdone and turns into a bad thing. So they said that we, in this way of life, we have a group of people that children can rely on, but they did not explain to us why not having this group of people is a bad thing. Well, we kept showing you that having a nuclear model makes it that the children have more attention directed towards them, as opposed to an ensemble of children having only a few parental figures, and these parental figures will not take care of all of them because a child needs more attention than a normal human being. And they also said that people, more specifically children, do not feel alone in this model, and they are not neglected. Well, they are more neglected in props, as I will show you, because they said that if parents don't speak to the children, then they could go to these parental figures. So what makes you think that these other people will be a better influence to the parents? Prop may have the children's best interests at heart, but their words are no proof for it. Even more, their words show a level of carelessness with these children that should be legal. For their argument, Prop is simply assuming that all people are good, no thank you, and will take care of a random child as if they were their own. Sorry to break it to you, but people are mostly selfish and will not take care of a random child like their own parent would. What this looks like is a dozen children. I'll take you later. What this looks like is a dozen children sitting in the living room, instructed to not make noise, or running around without adult surveillance, while the adults are telling to themselves. Even worse, it looks like the older children being tasked with taking care of the younger children, thus giving them a responsibility they are not fit to take upon, and putting children's lives in the hands of another child. We see this all the time, as very unfortunately, communal child rearing is not a rare thing here in Morocco. Girls as old as 12 are named responsible for taking care of a herd of children instead of the responsible adult doing it themselves. And that is only in the best case scenario. I'll take you now.
Okay, so you said, what if other members of the community are bad influence for the kids? Well, actually, this will make it easier and simpler for parents, because what if other members of other people are bad influence? For example, a friend from school, or just other people in the street are bad influence for the kids. How will parents shape the dynamics between the kids and other people? How will they even know about it? But if another member of the community had bad influence on the kids, that means that parents could witness firsthand and have more power to participate in the dynamics and shape them, because they all live in the same community, so it's easier to manage.
Okay, thank you. So what we are seeing from this POI is that proposition is acknowledging how important the role of a parent is, and how it is more important than the role of another random adult. They said that they said in this POI that if these adults are bad influences, then we have the parents to set it right. Well, did you not? Well, you are right now acknowledging that these people could be a bad influence. And aren't you yourself in proposition saying that sometimes parents are not available for their children, and thus adults are there to make wrong the right? Exactly. So if these parents are not doing the job. Let's assume these parents are not doing their job and we have a bad influence, then who will set the wrong right? Who will tell these children that this is a bad influence? This is an answer that they are going to have to respond to win this case. So as we have told you, this is only the best case scenario. No, thank you. Worst case scenario is that in communal child rearing, this is not only, it is there are a lot of manipulations tactics used to keep a child controlled by communal ideology, but it is also a nesting bed for abuse and child molesting, as well as an ideal environment for the growth of cults. As you are trapped in community, you have more religious retention. You grow up hearing about one single ideology and have more pressure to adopt it with no privacy. Well, proposition told us that it is grounds for respecting difference since you have a lot of different people around you. Ladies and gentlemen, that is blatant lie. A community of people is people that are alike in some way. What makes you think that a community of white supremacists will understand and respect difference? This is an argument that is just completely a lie. So, ladies and gentlemen, proposition is very surely living in an illusion, but we have dismembered this illusion for you today. We showed you that finances are not the most important thing, and even if they were important, we have showed you through examples that it is that this problem, that poverty is a problem that is symmetrical to both sides. We have also showed you that having multiple influences, having multiple parental figures as adults is often protected time, is oftentimes not a good thing. So it does not take a village to raise a child. Thus, we are extremely proud to oppose.
Thank you for that speech. The speech time was 8 minutes and 15 seconds. Let's have the opposition reply speaker.
Everyone see my screen?
Yes.
So speech starts on first word. In today's debate, we heard the following saying 3 times. It takes a village to raise a child. Twice by first prop speaker and once by third speaker. Yet, we failed to hear why or how it would achieve so. Now, firstly, allow me to focus on the main mistakes of our opponent today. Number 1, they failed to listen to our definitions. They failed to understand how we define a communal way of raising a child. In fact, they have not disagreed, but worse, they failed to interact with it in the first place. And as such, we do believe that all their arguments were based on a definition that did not even exist in today's debate. Now, what were the key clashes of today's debate? Number 1, we outlined the main consequences and impacts this motion will have on the main stakeholders, which we introduced as number 1, the children, and number 2, a secondary stakeholders, which is society. We clearly outlined the impacts. We spoke about what these children need, and we identified it as care, attention, and mostly interests of this child. And number 2, we also outlined how these will impact society in the long term. And yet we have seen a failure of the opposition team to interact with these clashes. They have introduced some arguments, such as, for example, the economic factor, the financial factor, yet without really elaborating on that and without taking into consideration the definition. And furthermore, disregarding all of our POIs as though we never asked them. We asked twice how it is exclusive that the children will have the ability to interact with other communities. They failed to answer that question. They have spoken about how community raising will allow these children to interact with different ideas, different factors, etc. We outlined why that's not only possible in communal ways of raising a child, but also possible in our side of the motion, yet they have failed to respond to that. Furthermore, we also spoke about the financial aspect of things. We spoke about how the contribution, whether it is financial, moral, or simply human contribution to raising a child, does not only occur in a communal way of raising a child, but also in a traditional family unit. They have failed to discuss that. They only focus on their aspect of things without really opening their ears and eyes to what we said, to what we proposed. Furthermore, our third speaker clearly outlined how financial contributions do not necessarily exist in places where poverty is roaming. And she gave examples of countries with the majority of communal child raising, such as Morocco, Kenya, etc. Yet they did not discuss that throughout their speeches. As such, on the main clashes of this debate, we believe that number one, we clearly outlined the major impact on the stakeholders. And number two, we did that in a way of comparison where we outlined the difference between the impacts, what their impacts will be and what our impacts will be. So as such, we do believe that we won this debate because we clearly identified the stakeholder, we identified the consequences of this motion on the stakeholders, we identified how that will work, how it worked in the past. We provided examples. We discussed these examples. We analyzed these examples. We analyzed why it will work or will not work in the future. And most importantly, we discussed how our side of this motion works better than theirs. Now, on such, I'd like to capitalize on something very important, and it is that we were the only team in this debate that offered a thorough analysis of the arguments. That number one, offered reasonable arguments, and number two, offered reasonable definitions, and most importantly, analyzed the arguments in deep and thorough ways. And as such, we do believe that we deserve to win this debate.
Okay, speech time was 4 minutes and 3 seconds. Now let's have the final speech, the proposition reply speech.
Okay, so I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. As we have explained, in order for us to win this debate, we had to do one thing in general to prove to you why children being raised communally offers way more advantages and is overall better than being raised in traditional family units. And we are so proud to say we have. Not only have we shown you, panel, all the benefits of child being raised in a communal parenting, but we have also shown you why the traditional family unit at times can be full of negatives, but also how it has the negative impacts on the children and the parents in turn. Through a multitude of explanations, comparatives, and examples, we have proven so. On the other hand, Team Up has completely failed to do so. Team Up talks about how in their world, only one point of view and one set of parenting techniques is enough because, and I quote, too many makes the child confused because they are just children, as the second speaker of their team has said. However, not only did we not hear one single argument from their side arguing that, their whole speech was simply restating that in their world, there are still people helping at times and that in traditional parenting, there is less trauma. However, since they are talking only about the negatives, they are not considering that there is actual real trauma in the family units, since the children can be and are only exposed to what their children want to hear, and at times that is not good at all because it can be very violent. However, we have given 3 whole arguments defending our side compared to them, and they said that we didn't. In our first argument, we spoke about how financial support is likely to be more stable in a communal system of parenting because several people are contributing to the resources allocated to a child. This argument is very important because finance is an integral part of life that they completely disregarded. Whether we like it or not, nothing can be achieved or fulfilled. No one can succeed entirely unless they have the financial support. In our speeches today, we spoke about how all the peoples are affected, the parents, children, and the society as a whole. In the financial aspect, it helps the parents out, but also the children as they are provided for, which in parental units at times, the parents are unable to provide for their children. In an optimal communal parenting system, finances and resources will be provided by the states and the community as a whole. So many people are materialistically contributing to a child's necessities. This would place so much less strain on the parents, mom and dad. Think about how a child is more likely to have their financial and other needs met if the income and resources come in from several different people. The children are less likely to live in borderline poverty or being neglected. Think about how if mom and dad are struggling to make ends meet, they're trying to pay the bills. In the end, them and their child will not be able to live comfortably enough, and their child's potential may not be nurtured, and opportunities may be missed because of this. In our second speech, we spoke about how children will develop alongside a group of individuals who will look out for them and treat them as one of their own. Children will experience an abundance of love and support that is unconditional. A large number of individuals who can show them affection and assist them financially, in addition to receiving love from their parents, is also important. When it comes to the open-minded side of things, they will eventually be exposed to other points of view in addition to just one. And this is incredible because they will be able to develop into children who are sophisticated than most and who will create their own identities based on many different perspectives. But also how the parents feel less distressed because they know that they are alongside people that are ready to help them support their children in all aspects of their lives. If the children feel frustrated and stuck, they know that their children are heard by at least one group of people. Their children are never alone. And before I conclude my speech, let me ask you one question. Would you rather be exposed to one set of parents that at times neglect and don't always have time to listen to their children, or be exposed to a community that is always there for you alongside your parents? So not only do you get what they are presenting in their world, but you also get more. Obviously, you'd want to get both because in our world, you still have the family units, but also the support of a group that you know will be there for you at any given time. Would you not like to feel more heard? Of course you would. And I believe this is the perfect way to end my speech, as we have fully proven ourselves. And for all these reasons, we are also proud to propose. Thank you very much.
Okay, the speech time was 4 minutes and 22 seconds.